I'm going to have Richard Davis come and give our financial report.
The independent auditor's report begins on page 202 of your digest, and you'll find a clean opinion from Joe Cullum, our auditor. On page 203, you'll find our statement of financial position. We ended the year with $90,758,000 in assets. Our statement of activities is presented on pages 204 and 205, one page being the income, the other page being the expenses. We're reporting $99,845 increase to our fund balance, positive income. Pages 207 through 216, you'll find our proposed budget, and you'll find it in two formats. And our compensation package details for 2022 follow that.
Our theme at the National this year is we make the whole team better. The backdrop at our booth features some offensive linemen because that's how we view the foundation. We're like the offensive line of a football team. Offensive linemen, other than the center, hardly ever get to touch the ball. They hardly ever score a touchdown. The truth is, unless you have a good offensive line, the team's not going to score a lot of touchdowns either. Foundation's ministry is not to send out international missionaries or church planters in the U.S. We don't educate students for future ministry or produce publications. We do help raise funds for now and into the future for all of these ministries, and that's how we make the whole Free Will Baptist team better. There's a lot of information in the digest that I encourage you to read, but I'm not really going to touch on much of that material here. This report will be about 2020, but also about what has happened so far in 2021. We started 2020 with great expectations. We were hoping for another record year from a financial point of view, but by the end of March, we had wiped out our entire gain from the previous year, and our total assets were down $12 million. Then we saw an incredible recovery as our assets went from $72 million at the end of March all the way to $90 million by the end of 2020, which was an $18 million turnaround. We are facing a challenge with our money management trust program. We've become aware that despite the fact that we primarily manage money either directly or indirectly for ministry, that we are required by many of our state securities laws to register in the states we do business. We're in the process of doing so right now, but our attorney has advised us that that we close the program for new accounts while we're in this process. We can and still are accepting deposits from individuals in ministries that already have money management trust with us, but it will be closed to creating new MMTs. We expect this process to take perhaps as long as 1 year, but there is a possibility it could be shorter for some states as we complete the registration. A couple of states are very stringent in their registration process and may choose either not to do business in those states or to use a loophole that allows us to have a limited number of individuals be involved in our program. One of the highlights of 2020 was a trip that I made to the Ivory Coast. We made 2 grants to the women's ministry in Ivory Coast to help them build a women's center that would be used as a dormitory for girls to finish their high school education in Banduku. We wanted to have a place that would be a safe environment. It will also be used for large meetings for Free Will Baptist Ivorians as well. And I was invited to come to the dedication, and what I saw and experienced was truly miraculous. When the women proposed this project a few years ago, they were told it was impossible. but I was privileged to see the impossible become possible. That building stands as a testimony to what determined women can accomplish with God's help. Yes, they received a total of $100,000 from the foundation, but the building they built cost over $300,000. And I realized how amazingly sacrificial that was, especially the women, because the average Ivorian only makes about $2,000 a year. So I'd like to commend them for that. I want to share a few things that I saw that I was really impressed with while I was in Ivory Coast as well. First, I was impressed with the way our missionaries had worked to establish churches, the churches that we have there. On the way to Bonduku, we were riding in a truck driven by Some, an Ivorian who spoke excellent English. Excuse me. And as we went through the towns and villages on the way from Abidjan, he showed us each of the churches along the highway and gave us a brief history of who had helped start the churches. It was a wonderful Ivorian Free Will Baptist history lesson. I was also impressed with the hospital in Dorpo, and again heard the history and the impact that hospital has had on reaching the Ivorians. I heard many stories of amazing conversions from Clint as we drove to Dorpo, including the conversion of a man that had been demon-possessed. I was impressed with the impact of the Bible Institute that Clint and Mike Cousineau played a large role in establishing. It seemed like every Ivorian pastor I met had graduated from the Bible Institute. Now, probably not every pastor had, but definitely the majority had attended and graduated from there, and they're doing a great job in reaching the lost. But you know, the final thing I was really impressed with was how our early IM directors followed the leading of God for Free Will Baptist to evangelize Ivory Coast. I think God must have spoken to them about how perfect our denomination was for such a work. They recognized that we were a rural denomination, and most of our leaders and potential missionaries were just country boys who'd grown up and knew how to live, and had grown up in rural agricultural environments. They thrived in the Ivory Coast. Those pioneer missionaries were used to making things last, being frugal with their money, and how to repair things that broke and engineer things they needed. I was very happy and privileged to be there and see the miracle that is Ivory Coast Free Will Baptist. A brochure's been passed out about our recent grants. Let me start with 2020. In 2020, our board met by Zoom, and while we were in the depths of the COVID crisis, and decided to suspend our usual guidelines for grants and to make emergency funding grants to 3 of our national departments. Therefore, Welch College received $400,000, WNAC received $100,000, and Randall House Publications received $100,000 as well. For 2021, we resumed our usual guidelines, but we only considered grant requests that we had received in 2020, since these had not been considered due to the pandemic. The brochure has the full list, but as you can see, that Bulgaria received the largest grant for the building that has now been purchased in Varna. We have now developed a rubric to help evaluate the grant projects. Each request is given a score, and the higher the score, the better the chance that we will make the grant. There's more good news. The board met on Monday, and we have voted to increase the grants to $750,000 in 2022. You know, I first became associated with the foundation in May of 1992, some 29 years ago. In one sense, it would be incorrect to say that I began working for the foundation then, because I was actually being paid by the Board of Retirement, and truthfully spent most of my time being the member services manager for retirement than I did doing accounting for the foundation. And just let me give you a side note here. Don't ever forget that if it hadn't been for the support of the Board of Retirement in those early days, there would not be a Free Will Baptist Foundation today. At the end of 1992, the foundation had total assets of $937,000, and our endowment pool was $291,000. The impact the foundation was having on the denomination was pretty minimal. The annual impact from endowments and money management trust earnings to ministries was around $42,000. Our future impact was even smaller, or was also small, because we had no formal estate planning program, so the future impact was only $56,000. Herman Hersey was the director of both departments, but would retire the next year, and Bill Evans became the director of both. I remember those early days, how we worked hard and prayed that our Free Will Baptist people would see the value and potential that the foundation could have to be a help to the denomination. We continued to pray, and the assets began to build. We closed the books in December 2004. Our assets stood at $27.1 million. In 2005, the foundation petitioned the National Association to allow the foundation to completely separate from the Board of Retirement and elect our own board. The total assets of the foundation at the end of 2005 were $33 million, and the endowment pool was $6.1 million. And the foundation was finally beginning to have a measurable impact on the denomination, as our annual impact was $930,000, and our future impact was $4.1 million. In 2013, we began the estate planning program, and we ended that year at $53.3 million in assets. And our endowment pool had now grown to $8.1 million. Our annual impact on the denomination was over $1 million, and our future impact was now $6.5 million. In 2017, we began the grant program, awarding our first $500,000 in grants. By the end of that year, our assets were at $76.7 million, and our annual impact had now grown to more than $1.8 million, but our future impact had risen even more dramatically to almost $20 million because we had established the estate planning program. I'm going to cut to the chase here. Ladies and gentlemen, in early June of this year, we crossed the $100 million mark. And our endowment fund now stands at $15 million. There's no human way to explain this. Thank God, from whom all blessings flow. Our annual impact on the denomination is now $2.4 million every year. And our future impact is now $41 million. And I think it would be appropriate to recognize that the many individuals and ministries that have trusted us with their funds through the years. So let me say, in true Memphis fashion, I say thank you. Thank you very much. NFWB has adopted an initiative for the year 2030 for our people, the churches and ministries, to reach, train, and give. It's called 3 for 30. I want to address the give part of this initiative, and I realize there are a lot of ways that you can give besides money, but I want to concentrate on cash and assets. First, let me dismiss a common misconception among Free Will Baptists, and that is that Free Will Baptists ain't got no money. and that we're a poor denomination. I just told you the foundation crossed $100 million in assets, and more than half of those assets belong to individuals. Free Will Baptists have enough money and assets to do our part in reaching the world for Christ. Today, the foundation is managing a planned gift from a family that is worth more than $1 million. We have another family that also has a unit trust that's over $800,000. We have several planned gifts in the $50,000 to $100,000 range. We have the wherewithal to do amazing things for the kingdom of God. But let me preface my remarks with this. It's not my intent to be critical of our current giving, but rather to challenge us to see what could be possible. You know, many of our ministries need major gifts for larger projects. For my purposes, I'll define a major gift as $200,000 or more. Welch College is in the Building on the Legacy campaign to pay off their new campus. Several ministries are building endowments, as you've heard. We have youth camps that are expanding. I know at least one church that will soon be building a multi-million-dollar sanctuary. We need some individuals to step forward and make some major gifts to these ministries. Many times major gifts are not made in cash, but in giving an asset. The foundation sponsored a seminar on major gifts on Monday. And in that seminar, we demonstrated it's actually possible that by using highly appreciated assets to make a $200,000 gift because of charitable deductions and capital gains avoidance, for that gift to only cost the donor $90,000 or less. Or you could look at it this way: they could make a $400,000 gift and actually only cost them $180,000. And I'm making a personal commitment to help any and all ministries that may be soliciting major gifts. When these gifts are made using assets, they are a huge benefit to the donor, but the foundation will be glad to help with the technical aspects of these gifts. Another big way that we can all give is by tithing on our estate. And you know the great thing about this gift is you're not going to miss it because you won't be here. You'll be in heaven. And please don't worry about your kids. They're not going to get mad at you if they only get 90%. They're going to be all right. Many of you have seen the historic 1935 photo that was taken at Coffers Chapel when the National Association was formed. I looked at that old photo of around 200 people and assumed that the demographics of that crowd would be similar to the demographics of the 80,000 members of Free Will Baptist at that time. You know, I wish that one of the actions of the 1935 meeting would have been to establish the Free Will Baptist Foundation. And we begin to encourage everyone to tithe on their estates then. If we had, and if every household represented by those 80,000 people in the denomination had tithed on their estate, leaving their gifts in the form of an endowment, we would have an endowment pool of over $200 million. The earnings on that endowment would be $10 million a year. What could we as a denomination do with an additional $10 million in income? We could give $1 million every year to North American ministries, and they could send out 10 additional church planters every year. We could give $1 million to IM, and they could be opening a new field every single year. Welch could use $1 million to give every student a significant scholarship and make college affordable for every Free Will Baptist young person. The Board of Retirement could set up a benevolent fund to help retired pastors with $1 million a year coming to fund this ministry. Randall House could publish many training materials at either a reduced or no cost to our churches and pastors with their $1 million a year. What if we had $1 million to devote to struggling churches through the revitalization program? We can't change the past, but we can do something about the future. If every Free Will Baptist household tithed on their estate today, it would produce an endowment fund of $1.8 billion. I said billion. The earnings from this trust would produce $90 million a year. Now I realize that would be many years into the future, and it wouldn't be worth the $90 million today, but it'd still be worth that $10 million that we were talking about, and we still could be able to dream those goals or accomplish those goals that I was talking about. We can do better also in our current giving from our income. According to U.S. government statistics, average household income is around $60,000. But for our purposes, and to make the math easier, and because Free Will Baptist ain't got no money, I'm going to cut it back to $50,000. Let's say in addition to tithing, every household gave 2% more to whatever outside ministry they chose. That would be $1,000 a year, or $83.33 a month. That seems like a reasonable goal, doesn't it? If Free Will Baptist households did so, our giving to all outside ministries would be $60 million a year. The gift budgets of IM, North American Ministries, and Welch combined is around $15 million. We could easily cover them along with every regional ministry like children's homes and youth camps. In addition to Welch, we could cover the gift budgets of Randall University and Southeastern as well, and still have an additional $30 million left over to expand all of our ministries. The parable of the rich fool in Luke 12 comes to mind, where the man had so much money he didn't know what to do with it. The parable ends with Jesus saying that what happened to this rich fool is what will happen to us if we lay up treasure for ourselves and are not rich towards God. I got a news flash for you. The man who dies with the most toys doesn't win. We are among the richest countries in the world. Did you know that if your household earns at least $32,750 a year, that you're richer than 90% of the households in the world? If your household income is $49,500, you are richer than 95% of the world's households. If the Lord has really blessed you and your household income is $99,000 a year or more, you're richer than 99% of the world's households. God hasn't blessed us so much so that we can buy more stuff. He has blessed us to be a blessing to the kingdom of God. You know, all these things, all these toys are going to burn up. The only thing to be left is what we invested in the work of the Lord. I was born on a Sunday, and the next Sunday I was in a Free Will Baptist church. I've been a Free Will Baptist all my life, a fourth generation Free Will Baptist dating back 124 years. I love Free Will Baptist, but I have some hard news for you. We are seriously underperforming in our giving. Psalms 116:12 says, "What shall I render unto the Lord for all his benefits toward me?" Is it possible for us to give more to the Lord than he's given to us? No matter what you give in money or assets, it will never equal what he has given you. And when you consider what Jesus did in paying our debt, our sin of debt, we're not capable of giving anything of true value. The least we can do is be generous towards God. We can do better. We must do better. So let's do better. Brother Moderator, that's my report. First, let me just say that June Mcveigh is retiring from our office. She's worked with us for 7 years, and she's been very instrumental in establishing the follow-up program with our estate planning. We will be having a reception for her next week at the National Office Building, but I didn't want to mention her service to our organization. The Foundation Board is unique in the sense that we, in addition to having the 9 members elected by the National, we also have the other 7 National Department directors on our board. Elizabeth Hodges is retiring as the director of WAC and is therefore going off our board. Elizabeth has had a tremendous influence on our board. I can't remember a single board meeting that she ever missed in her 11 years. She also has had a huge impact in helping to unify the denomination and a large role in making our current group of directors have the best relationships we've ever had as a group. She served as the Foundation Secretary for a number of years and has had an impact on many of our important decisions that we've made during her tenure. She's had a huge impact on helping the board develop the rubric which we are using to evaluate grants. We are giving her a nice clock to represent her time on our board, and the verse inscribed on that plaque is from Proverbs 11:16a. A gracious woman gets honor. When the Foundation Board was established in 2005, we had 3 groups of board members where the terms were staggered, with 3 being elected for 2 years who were eligible for an additional 2 full terms. 3 were elected to 4-year terms and could be reelected twice. And then there were 3 who were elected for 6-year terms and could only be reelected once. The Honorable Phil Whitaker was elected to one of the 4-year terms and is now completing his 16th year. His impact on our board cannot be overemphasized. As an attorney and judge, his sharp legal mind helped us to see the big picture in everything we've done. We always need to see both sides of any venture that we were involved in, both the potential blessing and the potential liability we could face. He has served as an officer of the board for his entire term as secretary, vice chairman, and in many years as chairman. The legal foundation he has helped to establish for the board will endure throughout our history. He is also receiving a clock to represent the time that he has spent on our board. And the verse on his plaque is also from Proverbs, but from 27:17. Iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another.